Welcome back to Right Fashion Academy YouTube channel for another interesting tutorial. In this tutorial, I'll be teaching you how to sew this mixed fabric 6 pieces gown, as you can see right there. So you can actually make it a free gown, you can make it a fitted gown following this tutorial. The principle remains the same. So this gown has a belt, okay? So you can see how it looks right there on me. I have a lot of ease added to this dress, okay? So it's actually very free, and it also have a flared sleeve. So if this is what you want to learn in this class, I'll encourage you to stay till the end of this tutorial to learn the tips and tricks to making 6 pieces bustier or 6 pieces princess dart. So stay tuned. Actually, I wanted to combine these two fabric together before, but I noticed that I have three yards of them, and the 3 yards will be enough for the center. The side I'll be needing 4 yards, so I now change my fabric to a fabric that is up to 4 yards. So the next thing we want to do is to draft out this pattern. So here I'm marking out my vertical lines from my chest line, bust point, half length. So I mark from the shoulder, my chest line, my bust point, my half length. There's no under bust, my hip line. So here is my chest line, my bust point, my half length, and the hip line. Then I'm using the full length of the paper for the length of this dress. Although I later increase the length, but I use the paper as a guide anyway. So I'm taking the shoulder divide by 2. So I'll mark out my shoulder divide by 2 on the shoulder line. I'll also mark it again on the chest line. So my shoulder divide by 2 on the shoulder line, and on the chest line, shoulder divide by 2. The neckline I used 4 inches and I came down by 1 inch. Then I created a straight line for my armhole. So the midpoint of my armhole, I'm going to mark it out, then go in by 0.75. Then I'm going to connect from the mid armhole a straight line to the tip of the shoulder. Then I'm going to take my bust circumference divide by 4. Then I added 2 inches for ease. On the waist, I took my waist divide by 4, added 2.5 inches for ease, and connected. Then on the hip line, I mark my hip circumference divide by 4, added 3 inches for ease. Then on the hem line, I'm going to connect from the waist to the hip first. Then on the hem line, I marked my hip circumference divide by 4. Then I added 7 inches or 6 inches for ease. So I now went ahead and connected from that hip line with a straight line, because it's actually an A-line gown anyway. So I'm going to mark my nipple to nipple measurement. I'm using 4.5, so I'll just mark nipple to nipple divide by 2. I marked it on the bust point and on the waistline. I took it all the way to the hem line. So after I'm done marking, I'm going to create my dart. So the dart intake I took here, but before that I'll complete my armhole. So the dart intake I'm taking here is 0.75, 0.75. That is 3/4 on one side, making it 1.5. So I just go ahead and connect it 1.5 inches, connect all the way. Then I'm supposed to replace that dart, but I'll replace it on my fabric with my seam allowance. So I'm going to connect my princess dart from the mid line to the bust point. I'll come down by 1 inch and connect again. So I don't really want the princess dart to be too curvy. So I came out by 1 inch to replace that part. Of course, you know how to go about a princess dart. So I just replaced it to avoid shortage. I came down by 6.5 inches because I want to create my neckline, and I came down by 8.5 inches on the center front. So I'm going to create my neckline right now. So from the I came down by 8.5, okay, 8.5 inches, and I came in by 2 inches. I'm just using that as a guide anyway. So but at the end of the day, I decided to come in by 4 inches from the tip of my shoulder. You come in by 4 inches and connect directly to the 8.5 inches. That is the kind of neckline I'm replicating. So but you can just go with any neckline of your choice. So this is what I got after I'm done connecting that. So the neckline can vary. So I'm cutting out my pattern because the front pattern piece is actually very much ready. So I'll just go ahead and cut. So I'll cut in through my princess dart. There's no bust here to this, but I created just a simple princess dart, so the bust can also see a place to sit properly. So I'll just cut through the neckline right now. So the pieces is ready and I label them F1, F2. So we'll go over to the back piece right now. So I've already ruled my line. For the back piece, I only have my chest line, my waist and the hip line. This is the center back. So I took the same shoulder divide by 2 on the shoulder and on the chest line, and I marked 4 inches, came down by 1 inch. So I'm just trying to repeat what I did at the front. I came down, then the midpoint I came in by 0.5 inch for the back armhole. Then I marked my bust circumference divided by 4 plus 2 inches for ease. I'm going to complete my armhole curve. Then on the waistline, my waist circumference divided by 4 plus 2.5 inches for ease. On the hip line, I mark my hip circumference divided by 4 plus 3 inches for ease, and I'll connect. Then on the hem line, I mark my hip circumference divided by 4 plus 6 or 7 inches for ease. It's an A line. So I now connected a straight line all the way from the hip line downwards. So now on the waistline, I'm going to take down my waist circumference divide by 4. I'll divide it by 2 again to get the back dart. So whatever I got there, I'm going to mark it on the chest line and on the waistline and on the hem line. So I'm going to draw the dart leg right now. I'll draw a straight line which will serve as my dart leg to the chest line. Then I'm going to place my pattern ruler to create the back dart. So I'll just go ahead and mark out my princess dart just this way. So wherever the cuff terminates very smoothly, you go in there, come out by 1 inch on the armhole and connect the armhole back to accommodate it. So after that, I'm going to impute my dart of half inch and I'm going to connect it. You can see how I'm connecting the dart. Okay, you just connect it at that point that we had that line. I'll come in by 4 inches and come down by 2.5 inches for the back neckline. Then I'm going to create the back neckline accordingly. Alright, so this is B1, B2, but then we need to contour the zipper line. I started cutting and realized that the zipper line has not been contoured. So I'll go over and contour with 1 inch on the waistline. I came in by 1 inch for my zipper contour line. I'm going to connect it to the tip of the neckline and connect it to the tip of the hip line. So all of this part, I'll cut it off to avoid zipper bulge. So I'm supposed to replace that contour line, but I'm going to add enough seam allowance to replace all of this on fabric. So I'm going to cut out through the princess dart. As you can see, the contour line, I'm cutting off through those lines. And I'm going to cut out the pieces accordingly. So the back piece is ready and I've cut it out. So this is how I cut it out. So you can see how I place the patterns from the waistline. After adding half an inch, I added more inches to increase the length of my dress. The length of my dress is 60 inches. So I now increase because my paper is not enough. I believe you understand. So I increased it, and from the waistline I kept my ruler up to that point. So the width of the center one I used 10 inches and the side one 22 inches. So you can make it smaller or you can make it bigger. So here you can see the 1 inch seam allowance, zipper allowance for the back. This is the back piece, and this is the side for the back piece as well. So I increased the length of my dress because the paper was not enough. I added 2 inches on the side of my dress to accommodate all the darts and the contour line. So here I'm going to start joining the pieces accordingly. So you can see I'm using a mixed fabric for this. So I'll just join the center front to the side front like that, just like how you join your 6 pieces blouse or 6 pieces skirt and all that. So I'm opening up the fabric, the right side, I'm going to merge it right side to right side. I'll take off my patterns and I'm going to pin them accordingly, but I will advise you make a notch on the waistline. So when you make a notch on the waistline for the center front and the side front, it will help you to join this fabric without issues. So I just go ahead to join them right now. So after joining, this is what I got. I gave it a good press. Now I joined the lining too because I cut out a half lining for this dress. So this is the back piece right now. So I'm going to also join the back pieces accordingly. So I went ahead to pick up the back pieces. Make sure you notch the waistline. So by the time you take off your pattern, you'll be able to use the notches to join this dress effectively. So both the lining and the fabric, I'm going to join all of them as one piece. So I'm still arranging them to make sure I am able to join them perfectly. So after joining it, I gave it a good press. So this is it, both the lining and the fabric has been ironed down. So I bring in the fabric right now because I want to sew the shoulder seam lines. So I went ahead to sew the shoulder seam lines. So I placed them accordingly and I stitched at 0.5 inches. So I'm trying to arrange them right side to right side. You have to place right side to right side. So after joining, I'm going to place my lining on top of it. Make sure you iron it out, open up the seam lines. So by the time we join the lining, we'll be able to have a perfect neckline. So I place it right side to right side right now. And I'm going to secure with my pins. So you secure at strategic points. You secure the center front, the shoulder seam line. Then you begin to pick them one after the other, the necklines, and arrange them lining and fabric accordingly. So I went ahead to pin all around up to the back part. So after pinning, I'm going to stitch at half an inch. So I'm stitching at half an inch on the part I'm chalking. So I'll just go ahead and chalk the half an inch. That is where I'm going to follow my stitches to stitch. So I did not stitch up to the, I left 1 inch on the zipper line. So after stitching, I made a notch. So make sure you make a notch at that deep V part so it will be able to turn very well. So I made my notches, and after the notches, I flipped all my seams to the part of the lining and top stitch on top of it. I gave it a good press. This is my neckline. Next is to sew the zipper line. So to sew the zipper line, I have to put the fabric together. I matched the fabric from the shoulder line, then I measured my zipper length. So I'm using a long zip for this. So I marked the point of my zipper. So at this point of my zipper, I came up by 1 inch. So at that point of 1 inch, I chalked it. So after chalking it, that is where my zipper opening will be. So I'm going to put the dress right side to right side and make sure I arrange it from the neckline again. I arrange it from the neckline up to the point of that zipper line I chalked. So I'm going to secure it with my pin from the point of the zipper, and I'll begin to secure with pins and mark 1 inch. That is where I'm going to stitch from that point of the zipper all the way to the hemline. So I'm going to stitch on the part I chalked at 1 inch to the end. Then later I'm going to sew my zip. So after sewing my zip, I stitch my zip only on the fabric because I want a perfect inseam finishing right here. I flipped my lining. You can see how I flipped my lining, and I left 1 inch on the zipper part. I did not sew the neckline up to that point. So I'll begin to secure with my pin on the horizontal, so I'll be able to stitch on top of my pin as well. So I will use my zipper foot right now and follow the line of the already existing stitches, and then I'm going to stitch with my zipper foot very closely until I got to the end of it. So my zipper is ready, and you can see how neat the inside of this dress actually looks right here. So I'm going to sew the size of this dress. I'm going to take my measurement accordingly and sew my seam allowance all the way down for lining and for fabric. So I'm done sewing, and this is what I have. Like I said, I cut a half lining for this dress. So the next thing we want to do right now is to start cutting the sleeve for this dress. Of course, the main dress is ready. So I put my fabric together right now, put it together again. I want to start marking out my sleeve. So after putting it together, I'm going to create my border line. I created a border line of 1 inch. From that point, I came down by 4 inches. So you come down by 4 inches, and on that line you mark your chest line. My chest line is 9 inches, but I added 2 inches to it, which is 11 inches. Then I get the midpoint of 11 inches and mark it at the upper border line to mark out a straight line. Then I got the midpoint of that straight line, and I'm going to use my curve ruler to curve the sleeve. So I'll just go ahead and create the curve for my sleeve head and bring it down for the down part of the sleeve. Then this is the inner sleeve or the front sleeve. I'll come up for the back sleeve by 1/2 inch, and from that 1/2 inch on that center line, I'm going to curve it into the line and finish it up to the cap height. So now I'm going to measure my bicep line. My bicep line is 9 inches, which is the biggest part of my arm, and I stop this sleeve at 12 inches, which is before my elbow line. So I stopped it at 12 inches. So on the bicep line, I'm going to mark my bicep circumference divided by 2. I will mark, I have 7 inches, I'll add 2 inches to it, making 9 inches. Then on the elbow line, I'm going to mark my elbow, divide by 2, add 2 inches to it. So I'm going to connect all of those lines from the cap line to the bicep line to the elbow line. So this includes my seam allowances. So I'll proceed to cut out this sleeve. So on the upper cap's height, I added 1/2 inch. So I'm going to cut the side of the sleeve, then open it up and cut the inner part of the sleeve, which is the front sleeve. So I'm going to make a notch at the sleeve grain line and make a notch at the front sleeve. Then I'm going to put it together right side to right side, and I'm going to stitch out the seam allowance. So after stitching, this is what I got. So I'm going to measure the down part of the sleeve because we are going to attach a flay to it. So I got 7 inches, which is together 14 inches. So I divided 14 inches by 6.28 for cutting a circle. So I'm going to fold my fabric right now. I want to cut the 2 circles of this sleeve. So I'll put my fabric together the first time and put it the second time because I want to cut 2 at once. So I'll now fold it again. Okay, so I'm going to start marking out my radius. The radius I got is 2 inches. So I'll just go ahead and mark down 2 inches for my radius, 2 inches, like that, like that. So that is the radius. Then I'm going to take the length of this sleeve at 7 inches. So I just mark 7 inches, 7 inches, 7 inches all around. So I'm going to cut out the radius of 2 inches, and I'm also going to cut out the length of the sleeve at 7 inches. So at the end of this cutting of this flare, I'll have 2 flares. Okay, so I just wanted to save my time. So this is my 2 flares right now. So I'm going to attach this flare part to the sleeve. So I'll bring in this is the wrong side. So I'm going to bring in the right side of this sleeve and place it to the right side of the sleeve. So I'll just go ahead and stitch at 1/2 inch all around. So after stitching, this is what I got. So I'm going to attach this sleeve to the dress. So I opened up the zipper and then I turned the inner part of the dress, the armhole part. I arranged it very well and secure with my pin the seam lines and the shoulder seam line. Make sure they are together for lining and fabric. I inserted my sleeve and make sure I pin the sleeve side and the sleeve grain line to the shoulder seam line. Then I'm going to stitch at 1/2 inch. So after stitching, I begin to cut the belt. I realized there is a belt attached to this dress, so we are supposed to create this belt before we close the sides. So this belt, I just decided to give a design. It's just a normal belt anyway, but I made a V-shaped pattern for it. So I marked like a V. This is 2 fabric together, so I just designed my belt right there. So this belt is by choice. You can just go ahead and do whatever, but this is what I want to do. So when I cut out this belt, the length of this belt is 35 inches. The length is 35 inches. So the width at the beginning of the belt, I used 4 inches, and at the end of the belt, I used 8 inches. So when I'm done cutting it, you are going to see the shape of the belt I created for this dress. So you can make it straight, you can make it tapered. So this is what I got. So next I'm going to put it together and I'm going to stitch at 1/2 inch. I'll stitch close this part and leave this part open. So I'm done with the belt. So I'll just go ahead and take the measurement of my half length. So I took my measurement of my half length at 17.5 inches. I measured 17.5 inches on the other side and open up the side. So I'm going to insert my belt into that opening. So I'll insert the belt into the opening. That is if you actually want to use a belt for this dress. But since we are replicating exactly what we have on the video, so I'm just going to put my belt like that. So I'm going to stitch from the inside right now. So after securing with my pin, I'll open up the inside and I'm going to stitch close my belt. So I stitched it only on the fabric. Okay, the lining is still where it is and the belt is on the fabric as well. So now I'm going to my machine to stitch the belt. So that is how we'll come to the end of this tutorial. We are done with this dress. After stitching the belt right now, the dress is very much ready. So I believe this class was helpful to you. So if you are new to this channel, please kindly subscribe, turn on your notification bell to receive videos like this every day. Like this video, share to family and friends, drop your comment on the comment section. See you in the next one. Bye.